What started off as a journey to make money and provide for my family has evolved into a purpose with a passion. I quickly realized that the real value is not in the cars that I sell or the money I can make. The real assets are my clients. And the ultimate value that I find is in the relationships that I'm able to create. This is Vet Adventures, and together, we all win.
My point of view is people are the most important thing.
You were great sport, man. You were awesome.
Your word is more important than any written piece of paper.
You always want to be a person that can dream and imagine and believe that you can be.
Do what you love to do.
It's a calling, it's not a job. You know how to put the work down.
Today we are headed to Naples, Florida to sit down with Chris Blattner, former vice president and co-owner of Blattner Energy, whose company was known for high quality, innovative work that pushed the boundaries in order to build a better future. His business and his family roots date all the way back to 1907 when his family started in business as D.H. Blattner and Co-Contractors. Chris has a very successful track record in business and leadership that we will dive into, but most importantly, Chris is a man of faith, which plays a key role in his success throughout life and his relationships. What's up, everybody? Jesse Piccolo, owner of Vet Adventures, and today we have a special guest, Mr. Chris Blattner, who is the vice president of Blattner Energy. Chris has a wealth of experience and knowledge. His family dates back to the founding of the business all the way back to 1907. So I look forward to speaking with Chris and letting him talk about his business experience, as well as something that's very important to him and myself as well, which is his faith, which he rolls into every aspect of his life and his business. And Chris, thank you so much for joining us today and agreeing to do this. I look forward to speaking with you. And
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So in order to start, I think we have to date all the way back to your family's roots in business, dating back to 1907 when your great-grandfather started the company.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how the family business got started and kind of leading up through the decades to where we are today?
Yeah, this will be real quick because there's a lot of details to it. My great grandfather came in through Canada and in the 1800s, I think. And well, I don't think it was the 1800s, and dropped down into Minnesota. Ultimately, ended up in central Minnesota. He was a farmer, and he used his farming capabilities to get into the construction business. Started doing work for James Hill, the railroad magnate in Minnesota, and did a lot of work for him into the states of Montana and so forth. He went in and out of business, went into farming and back into the business, the road building business and the railroad business. In the 30s, my grandfather and a couple of his brothers took over the business. And they got involved in county road work and then continued to work their way into interstate highway work. And we did some dams in different states, Colorado and Oklahoma. And then in the early 70s, my dad and three of his brothers ended up taking over the business. And they ran that. They were doing a lot of highway heavy, got into the bridge building business. And in the late 70s, early 80s, got into the mining business. Started doing some mining work in southern Minnesota for silica sand mining companies. And in those years, then we started to gravitate towards specialty contracting work, but a lot of mining work as well. And so we got into the gold mining business. We weren't actually processing the gold, but we were mining for gold companies. And so we did work in Idaho, in Montana. We did copper mining work in New Mexico and Arizona. We had work in Alaska. We had gold mining work in Alaska. We had gold mining work in Mexico. We had problems in Mexico. Mexico was a tough place to be. The Alaska mining work was very complex. All the equipment was flown in on C-130 transport planes. There were no roads into that mine. You had to fly everything in. So we flown everything in pieces and put them all together and mine there. In about 1997, so my older brother and myself and another gentleman who had really helped get us into the heavy mining industry, we were doing all the bidding and managing of the mining work in those years. We had a lot of other great employees working for us doing dam work and still concrete structure work and things of that nature. So we had a lot of good employees, but my brother and I were doing the mining work, and that's all specifically focus on that, because what happened in 1997 is we had about 50 to 60% of our work was mining. And we owned a lot of equipment. We were leasing a lot of equipment. And in 1997, the commodity markets tanked. Virtually all of our mining work shut down in almost one day. And we weren't getting paid by the mining companies. We still had lease payments to make on the equipment, so that never stops. And in the same time, our parents had started to retire the business. They had been retiring through the 90s. And so it put us in a really difficult situation. We had to figure out, really reinvent the business. What are we going to do now? How are we going to continue making the business viable? My older brother is the president of the company, Scott Blattner, and I had a cousin who was our attorney. I had a cousin who was our CPA, and then we had non-family members who I consider family members anyway, because they were very supportive and instrumental in making sure that the business survived. We strategically sat down for a number of years, strategized what's going to be our new direction, what's going to be our new plan of attack, so to speak, reinventing the business. My older brother went to the Harvard Business School and took the executive program there, and he would come back with knowledge and all kinds of volumes of information to help us learn how to become better business people. And so it helped us really become better at analyzing our financial situation, and then strategically, what are we going to do now? Because we were doing many things in the construction market. We were drilling and blasting. We were still mining. We were doing concrete work. So if you look at construction as a big circle, and inside that circle there's just multiple things you can do. You know, you've heard the term. You can do all things, but we're master of none of them.
Yeah, jack
of all trades, yes. Master of none, and that's really what our situation was. So one of the things that had happened, we had an individual who worked for us his name is Doug, and he was Doug Fredrickson. He was a very entrepreneurial, and so there was a focus on trying to get into the wind market, and this is. The way I'm saying this is very shrunk down to the
right.
amount of time it would take to explain the story. But we ended up getting into the wind market, and slowly that was a slow process through the 2000s, because through the reinvention process of the company, as my brother was bringing back those financial things and the strategic things, we had. Our bank had called, they basically wanted to call our loans, and so the Wells Fargo put us in the workout group, and so they worked through with us in order for us to reinvent the business.
They wanted their money back.
They wanted it back, but they had no choice, because we couldn't pay them back unless they worked.
You guys
with
are
us,
going to
right?
have to make it, so figure it out.
One interesting way to put that is that my uncle drew the whole line of credit down.
Uh-huh.
And then when they wanted to call it back, we said, we basically, in a nutshell, you're going to work with us.
Yeah.
So that's what happened.
Okay.
And so we had advisors come in, all kinds of people helping us figure out how to do all these things. So we sat down, we'd strategically plan with groups into the late hours, into the evenings, week after week, trying to figure out what we're going to do next. What parts of the business are we going to keep? What are we going to start to exit from? Mm-hmm. And that didn't happen overnight either. That was a long process. We used the book Good to Great, written by Jim Collins. Oh, yeah. And there was a lot of good information in that book. And we used that as a guide to help build our business.
Love that.
In a lot of ways. Yeah. And we started looking at how we were analyzing the people working for us. trying to figure out, okay, how we're going to get the best of the best working for us and things of that nature. And so those are things we gave everybody the opportunity to rise to the occasion. Some people rose to the occasion, some people struggled with it, and so we went through a lot of shedding of people, and which is a hard thing to do because these people, and
Right.
and I mean they're human beings with families, it's struggle, but you have to make tough business decisions to make that stuff happen.
Absolutely. Would you say that was obviously probably your biggest adversity that you guys had to face in business when you kind of had to strip down the business to rebuild it?
Well, that's a tough part, but also reinventing. What are you going to do?
Yeah, because you're essentially starting over.
Right. What kinds of things are you going to do? We knew we were good at. We knew we were honest. People knew we were honest people.
Right.
The markets that we worked in, they knew we were honest businessmen, and we had good relationships with the mining companies. We had good relationships even with the highway departments. They liked us because we did good quality work.
Right.
But we realized we couldn't compete in that low bid situation because we're going to do the quality work, and other contractors come in and they don't do the quality work, and they do it as cheap as they can, right?
Yeah.
So that we decided that we had to get out of that market. We couldn't do any of the public works anymore.
Right.
We had to develop relationships with specific clients. One of our clients ended up being that we ended up developing great relationships with was Florida Power and Light. They were big into the wind markets in the 90s and in the early 2000s, and they were building wind farms across the United States. And we ended up getting into that market. And one of the ways we proved that out was we proved that we would watch the people that built the wind turbines. They required that they be the installers of the wind towers,
Right.
and the generators and everything. And so they were installing and building all that stuff up. Well, they weren't very good at that. We built bridges. We had cranes. We knew how to bring things up and put it together. And so we convinced them to give us some work, and we ended up.
This is FPL, right? Florida
Yeah,
Power and Light.
yeah.
Do some work. Okay.
So we convinced them to give us a project, and,
Right.
and we proved that we could do it on time, under budget, and faster than anybody else, and we did it. And and slowly we started to get into that market and gain their trust. A couple of things. Here's something else that we did that other contractors I think struggle with, is that we would bid a project, and we would say we're going to do it for this amount of money, and if we made a mistake on the bid, we ate it. We didn't change order them.
Integrity.
Other contractors would low bid, come in, and then fill out a bunch of change orders, and then they end up doing the work on change orders and making their money that way. No, we would say, no, we're going to do it. I mean, if they made a change, there would be a change order.
Right, that's understandable.
But if we made a mistake, we ate it, and they liked that.
Yeah.
They liked that.
As I grow in business and create more relationships myself, obviously, just in you talk about how it's obvious how important relationships is and doing good business. How much of doing good business and having a good relationship is versus obviously the quality of work that you have to do needs to be up to standard, but just talk about briefly just how important having quality relationships is in business, because I think a lot of people, as they come up in business, they don't put a lot of focus and emphasis on the relationship side of things.
Yeah.
They only want to look at gross revenue, profit, and they forget about you're actually creating real human-to-human connection and relationships.
Right.
I mean, how's that really serve?
Well, quality, safety, a whole bunch of things went into play in what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we realized, rework costs you money, right? And so we started building out our and strengthening the way we analyzed the work we were doing during the time of building the project. So we were trying to build a project as much like an assembly line project as we could,
Right.
with as little rework as possible. And we started analyzing the cost of the rework and started to show that to a lot of our other people out in the projects. And once they realized the cost of the rework, they understood that we really needed to buckle down. Doing it once right is always the cheapest way of doing it. Same thing with our safety side of things. One of the things that Florida Power and Light impressed on us is you need to get your safety up to a level that it needed to be. That was also an additional thing that was really important for us to continue to get and maintain work with a lot of these clients. That was a number one thing for them, and it had to be a number one thing for us. When they pressured us to do things for them, instead of some contractors pushing back and saying, well, they're going to make us do all this stuff, we said, no, tell us more. How can we learn more from you? I want to do this the right way. And not to, not to say that we didn't struggle with that. We did, because you had to take that feedback constructively, though. You had to accept it for what it was, and you had to turn around and then build it into something that was going to be better. So we also started to analyze our safety and helping, and also requiring our employees to calculate the cost of damages and what that impacted us, not just the damage itself, but the cost and loss of productivity and things of that nature. Now, this isn't new to the business world. Lots of businesses figure this stuff out. But it was something we had to figure out in the realm that we were working in. And a lot of contractors, I don't think, really paid not all of them, but a lot of them that were in our competitive realm didn't pay a whole lot of attention to that. And we saw it as an important aspect. We looked at FPL, and when they said, you need to fix this, you need to fix that, we said, okay, we want to fix that. Tell us how we can do better. And so that was important for us. So we ended up putting a behavior-based safety program in place too, which required us to set up teams of people, and they'd go out and analyze the projects, and then they would calculate the loss of productivity, and then they would start to show the productivity people why this is so important. So my team included production people that had a great degree of credibility on our project. So in construction, some people say things like this: in construction, people get hurt, it's just construction. Baloney. It doesn't have to be that way. And we started to stop that kind of talk.
That's good.
And in the production people that were really had high credibility on the projects, they were also people that had the high amount of respect from all the workers and things of that nature, and they were driving a lot of the projects. And so we said, we got to get them on board with our safety side of things so they can buy into it the way we're trying to teach them to buy into it. And once we got them on those teams and saw the costs and how much that was taking out of their pockets, because the bonuses were impacted by that, they realized how important that was, and they got on board. Yeah. Now, what I'll say about all of that is, as you're growing a business and you're bringing in people from other companies, now you have to reteach that to them,
Company
right?
culture.
So it's like a cyclical wheel that never stops. And so in leadership, you have to say the same thing over. All the important aspects of what you're trying to drive, you have to say it to everybody. And then when you're done saying it to everybody, you say it again.
Okay.
And when you're ready to puke because you've said it so many times, you say it again. And you keep saying it again.
Noted.
Never stop.
Yeah.
Because those key aspects are what continue to drive the business forward. And if those are if that's your purpose and your values, you keep saying those things all the time, over and over and over and over. And good to great. He said, if people don't know the difference between right and wrong by the time they're 25 or 30, they probably never will. I don't totally agree with that, but I agree with it into this sense, is that you're going to hire people that work for you. They're going to come in, they're either going to buy into what you're saying and they're going to believe it, or they're going to fake it for a while and they're going to get caught, because you can only fake that so long.
Right.
And then those employees have to be ejected out of the business. So we actually had a diagram put together. It was our fit performance diagram, and which is now all this stuff that I'm talking about is owned by Quanta Services, who purchased us in 2021.
Right.
But I think I can share the fact that they're using all these things. This is their stuff now.
Yeah.
And they use a fit performance diagram and things of that nature. But we always were looking at, okay, you have to have people that have good fit and have good performance. So let's say somebody has really good performance, but they have low fit. And in our business, that model, that was off the bus. Get them off the bus, because they're going to drag and teach people bad values.
Right.
They may have high performance, but maybe they're not doing it in an honest way either, right? So you got to be careful there. Somebody that has a lot of fit but low performance, they fall into a quadrant that can have two things happen to them. We can either put them on the right bus, in the seat on the bus, and raise their elevation into the quadrant that has high fit, high performance, or maybe they need to find a different vocation.
Like a position in the company, or different?
Well, first of all, you try to put them in a new seat on the bus so that they can actually elevate and perform.
Right.
But let's say they can't. then you have to have a good hard talk with them. Not that they're bad people, they're good people. They just, maybe this is the vocation for them.
Yeah.
So we would do that with good people. You know, ultimately, if they couldn't get into a right seat, you have to have the hard talk and say, you're probably better off somewhere else.
What's the window that you give them the time to elevate their performance if they do have those good values? 60 days, 90 days? What do you think?
Oh, that could change depending on
varies.
the person. That varies.
Okay.
Yeah, that would vary.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't even be able to put a number to that
Okay.
necessarily.
Fair.
But you know, you want to have the good, honest talk. And if you're really, so here's the thing that just kind of ease into a little faith thing. I used to think about, you know, do you love somebody, right?
Absolutely.
Some people think a love is a husband and wife love. Well, that's not necessarily. No, if you love somebody, there's action involved with that. You care about them. So we talk to our employees, and we want them to give feedback to people. And if you don't give feedback to them, how are they going to get better?
That's right.
Right. And if you continue not to give them feedback, then sometimes I'd confront people and say, well, do you really like this person? Do you like? Oh yeah, that's a great guy. Well, do you love him? Well, what do you mean love? You know, that's so, do you love them enough that you're concerned about their future and their family?
Right.
That you can help them elevate themselves so they can have success. And so that's the important thing about that, I would say. Give them the feedback because you care about them enough that you can want them to succeed. And that's important, I think. You know, to watch people succeed should give you, as a leader, great.
Yeah.
You know, it should make you feel good, right?
Absolutely.
And that's really what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Honesty, see people succeed,
Yeah.
see them grow, give them opportunities for places to fit into the organization. And then I'll say this too about the organization, share the wealth.
Yeah.
Don't keep it just for the stockholders. I mean, the stockholders have a fiduciary responsibility, or the business has a responsibility to the stockholder to a certain percentage, but at what percentage can you cut that off and continue to just pour money into your employees?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we did that. I mean, it wasn't uncommon at times for some employees to see a bonus that was pretty close to their annual salary.
And unexpectedly, right? Or did they kind of know it was coming?
Well, the first time it happened, I think there was a lot of surprises and certainly excitement. But I think they finally realized, wow, we helped, and they're really honest. They're really trying to pay us back. They're really trying to be fair to us.
I love that.
And we continued to do that for many years.
This is gold. Like what you just dropped in the past 10 minutes of talking is some serious gold, and I appreciate it. And I'm gonna go back and listen to this multiple times. Because I'm trying to do that with Harry. Harry's 20 years old, and I have a couple guys that work with me now, and they're very young, you know, and I'm trying to get them to see, like, and tell them, like, hey, I'm trying to build your dreams. I want to know what your dreams and aspirations are in life, because I want to make sure that what you want in life can fit inside this company, so that where I take this company as a whole, you're going to get out of life what it is that you want. And I'm grateful that you're buying in and going to be a part of that. So there's a sense of, like, extreme, I don't know if you want to call it loyalty, but appreciation for the guys that say, hey, I'm going to come work for you. Like, I take that very seriously in making sure that they can become successful. So is there a way to, like you said, continue to repeat the core values and everything like that, but is there any other type of way to, like, continue to, like, cast the vision for the company so that they continue to buy in, even when times get shaky, or, you know, like your employees see you guys struggling and you're like, uh-oh, is the company gonna make it? Am I gonna be out of a job? Like, how do you keep those guys anchored in and bought in? You know, is there
Excited.
Yeah,
How do you keep
excited.
them
Yeah,
excited?
exactly.
I'll tell you what, that time from 1997 to about 2001 or 2 was really a tough time, and we had some long-term employees that stuck with us through thick and thin. I'm surprised that they did, because they could have gone somewhere and found something else easily, because they were all good people. And but they stuck it out with us. I think you just have to be honest with them and be transparent in a lot of things, and that's important to get them to say, here's what we're struggling with. You know, are you willing to help us go through this?
Yeah.
And they were.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not so sure that they weren't getting offers from other people.
Right.
But some of the really, the hardcore stuck with us. And I mean, I think of them like family. I mean, they were all very good people, and
I
And
was gonna say, it sounds like your employees loved you guys. You
Yeah.
know? So the same love that you showed them and wanting them to succeed,
Yeah.
they didn't bail on you when times got tough. They're like, hey, we might not be blood, but we're family. And we're
Yeah.
gonna stick this through with you guys because we want to, you know, we're bought in. That's amazing.
I'm not so sure we're always the most likable, but you know, I think we were so transparent in the way we talked with each other that
Yeah.
probably gave them the sense that that they could continue to go through it with us.
Nice.
You know, and we listened to them. I mean, so many we needed non-family members. They had great ideas.
All
We
right.
didn't have all the ideas. Many of them had a lot of the ideas.
Yeah.
You know, we helped build off of it, and we allowed them to build off of it. Right? I mean, where they were making decisions. I mean, we let them. One of the employees says we give them enough rope to hang themselves. You know, and they appreciated that.
Yeah.
You know, and our dads did that for them, and we did that. You know, too.
Is that just so you can kind of everybody can learn on their own
Yeah.
and grow?
I learned much from a lot of the non-family members, and I would not even say, you know, even though I was a major stockholder in the business, you know, we weren't lording it. I don't feel like we lorded it over any of them. We didn't try to do that. We tried to look at them like brothers and sisters in the business, and just work through the situations.
Love that. Just quality relationships, family, look after the people who
Yeah.
help you build business. I love that. Let's talk about faith, something that you and I both are extremely passionate about. What is faith to you in leadership?
Well, faith is really important to me in leadership because I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, and I believe He's my Savior. And so when I look at business, I think I'll give you a good example of this. So in 2013, I went to Oxford and I took a 6-week course in apologetics there. And I don't know if people know these names or not, but I'm gonna throw them out there. Os Guinness and a gentleman by the name of John Lennox, who John Lennox debated Richard Dawkins. He debated Peter Singer. He debated Christopher Hitchens. All those three guys I named are very, very well-known atheists. John Lennox was a professor at Green Templeton College, had at least 3, maybe 4 PhDs, and he was one of the people that I sat in the class and we learned from. And a lot of times we talked about, you know, what will heaven be like? Will there be economy in heaven? Will there be business in heaven? So, and it led to the discussions about, so what is business like on earth? And how should it be? And how should you work with people? How should you honor people? The word work and worship in Hebrew are the same word.
Love that.
So the interesting thing about that is we talk about what economy in heaven might look like. And so when I came, you know, a lot of things that I tried to live out in my business environment was business was the ministry. Business is the ministry. So I wasn't the president. My brother was the president. He was, you know, I couldn't just make changes without talking to people. So I had to be a little careful about some of that stuff.
Right.
But it was never really pushed back hard on me if I shared my faith and talked about my faith. My brother was pretty free about that. In fact, my older brother gave us all New King James Bibles with trying to think of his name, Maxwell.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I want to give him credit. I just can't remember his name. Anyway, with Maxwell helps in there, which is all business-related helps,
Right.
and how the Bible applies to business, and business can can apply biblical principles to business. So business is the ministry. I looked at my department as I can lead that in a kind of a Christian fashion. You know, I can show that I care about people. And I can share my faith in some situations. So we'd have orientation, new employees would come in. I would actually talk to them about their worldview because I wanted them to see when they're working around people, it isn't just about you stepping on everybody to get to the top of the ladder.
Right.
You need everybody on that ladder together to get up the ladder. There's a really good meme that I share with people, and it shows the boss versus the leader. It shows the boss climbing up a mountain and the other people are behind him. He gets to the top and he's jumping up and down like he's the first one there.
Right.
But the real leader is leaning over, reaching down, pulling up the other workers to the top with them.
Love it.
Right? And so that's important. So then when I say business is the ministry, or if you're in a mid-level organization, your department can be the ministry. How are you treating your people? How are you honoring them?
Yeah.
How are you helping them succeed? Because the true leader wants the success in the people that's working with them to be raised up. And we always talked about, it was hard to live out, but we tried to live it out. Plan for your replacement. Always be prepared to be training your replacement.
Yeah,
right?
I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
to get prepared for when you grow, the person under you can teach the next person who's kind of coming
Exactly.
up, and you want to be ahead of schedule for that.
Exactly.
Yeah, one of my mentors talks about that a lot, because he's going to need to be able to replace himself with the person under him,
Yeah.
and vice versa, and the change just continues. I think what you're talking about, the business is the ministry, is spot on, because the core values of Christianity and walking with God should be an example throughout the way you treat everybody, your employees, your partners in business, the people who you service in business. You should be a walking example of that, and people should be able to see that. And if they don't really necessarily have a faith, I try to live my life to where if somebody doesn't have a relationship with God and they're not sure, they can look at me and be like, hey, what makes you you? And then I can just turn around and give all the credit and talk to, my relationship with Christ and God and say, hey, my relationship with Christ renewed my whole behavior, my whole mind, like my whole way of life, my whole perspective, everything. And I realized it wasn't about me anymore. It was about serving others and making the world a better place. And that's essentially what I like to do with these interviews. This is why I love to interview my clients and people who are successful, because I look at myself as that leader turning around and reaching my hand down and trying to pull people up by extracting the information, your guys' experience and wisdom, to share it to my audience. I don't have 1 million people who watch this, but I might have 10, 20, 100, whoever. It doesn't matter, because this is my way of giving back, and I'm super grateful to be in the position to have these relationships that I have. And it's not just about making money at all. It's about how can we create mutual value to make the world a better place and create other leaders within society through the values of walking with God. And that lights a fire in me. It really lights a fire in me. That's my passion.
That's awesome. Let me just share. Let me back up a little bit. So I became a believer in 1999.
Awesome.
Okay, I won't attribute. I want to be careful, because some people think that you become a believer and you get wealthy. I believe God can give and take away as quickly as He gives it. He can take it away as quickly, right?
For sure.
Wealth is not a indicator of a person's faith, right? Or saved status, for example. When we were going through the struggles, I was already a believer. I was probably a believer before that, but I plant my flag in 1999 for other reasons we won't get into this discussion. But I was trusting Him regardless of what happened. I was thinking about, what am I going to do if the business goes under? I had to start thinking about some of those things too. But I wasn't going to leave my faith because of it.
Right.
My faith was not dependent on my wealth. And so that's. I just want to make sure I make that point clear.
Absolutely.
Because some people, because there's these individuals out there that say that tie faith with wealth.
Yeah.
And I don't believe it at all.
Render to Caesar what's to Caesar. Render to God what is God.
Yeah.
And God tells us, don't store riches and material things to where they'll collect dust. Your riches are in heaven.
Exactly.
And you share that with your people. It's your wealth is in here, and how you make other people feel. And I love what you're talking about, being transparent with your employees and letting them know that you love them. Because to me, when you help out a stranger that's in need, or anybody, that feeling of connection that you feel when you do a good deed, just because you're called to do it, that is real wealth to me. That is the best feeling in the world that I can feel, versus making money or going and buying a car or anything like that. And I read something the other day. Everything goes back in the box when you leave.
Yeah.
Nothing is truly yours. And that just kind of made me be like, wow, a lot of people want to achieve material success and riches and things like that, but along that pursuit, it's very easy if you're not founded and locked in your faith and trust in the way that it may go. You can get lost in the sauce, and the enemy scoops you right up, and next thing you know, you're dancing with the devil.
Yep.
And your world's turned upside down. You don't know how you got there.
Exactly.
You know?
Your faith has to be grounded in Christ. It can't be grounded in the things of this world.
right.
Otherwise, you're gonna flow with the wind.
That's right.
You're gonna be tossed around like the waves.
That's right.
So backing up to the apologetic side of things, I want to get back to the one piece that I was trying to get to, and it was talking about worldview.
Yes.
And so I would interview people, and new employees would come in. I'd ask them about their worldview, because I would say, because if we're here and it's just time plus matter plus chance, and we're here just for once and then we die, then you should try to get to the top of the ladder, because what else is there after, right?
I like that.
But which I believe, there's a higher power, there's God, and He's got something else planned, and this is more about people, then we're not time plus matter plus chance. We have a responsibility to help other people rise to the occasion too, and to look at them with a different, from a different viewpoint, instead of as a tool to get to the top of my ladder, right? We can't look at people as a tool. People are not tools. They're individuals. They got thoughts, they got desires, they got hopes and dreams and things of that nature. And so we have to help everybody, kind of rise to the occasion and see those things come true in their lives.
I love that, and I appreciate you again agreeing to do this interview. I feel like you're doing that for me, and I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'll leave it off with any closing remarks. What is entrepreneurship to you? And I think you kind of already defined success in a sense throughout the conversation. But to anybody who's aspiring to be an entrepreneurship and go through that gauntlet to start their own business because they want to work for themselves and they want to help elevate people, what advice would you tell them? Starting off and to prepare
First of all, I would say, put a mission statement together. Know your values. Know your values, and when I think about values, I think know the things that are going to not just bring success to yourself, but to others too. Character and reputation are long-term builds, and it takes one bad decision to tear it down. And I'll tell you what, it'll take you forever to build it back up.
Yeah.
And so, have a good set of values, have a good mission for yourself. And whether you become a millionaire or you're living paycheck to paycheck, do it with the right motive in your heart, and just be honest and genuine about what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Love that.
So
yeah, I appreciate that. Everybody that I've interviewed that's that is successful, it's the same story. It's the same core values. It's the same recipe of success. And I think we just kind of overcomplicate things, and it's really the person that we become inside as a good individual, an honest individual, a person of integrity and character, and that will kind of be like your engine that guides you in the right direction to be able to create and to become successful, and as well as attract the right people in your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's awesome, man. Chris, I greatly appreciate it so much, man. This
You're
is
welcome.
awesome. Thank you, man.
This is good.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely gonna have to go back and rewatch this multiple times. He dropped a lot of gold. Thank you so much.
All right.
Awesome. Sweet.